Then we can make it start. I'm just trying to set up to YouTube, please. Just hold on. Apologies while I'm doing this quickly. Okay, so good evening again, everyone. You're welcome to Pass the Baton for the month of May. Pass the Baton for the month of May. So someone is here as a new person, and tonight you're asking, what is this? What is this all about? Pass the Baton is an online platform where ladies, women come together to rub minds, to empower, to enlighten, and to pray on various issues that affect us as everyday women. So the prayers we do on Sunday, if you want to join us, just let me know. We come together every month, every last Friday of the month of, so we've been doing it now for almost 2 years, I think. So we come together every last Friday of the month as women, and we come together just to discuss on various issues. Whether you are married, whether you're single, whether you're widowed, whether you are a matured single person, it doesn't really matter. As long as you wear the hat woman, you are actually very welcome here. And we love to see you. We love to see each other. And tonight, I just want to say thank you all for coming. I'm not sure what's happening with my laptop, but yeah, please do just bear with me. And tonight we are looking at your estates. Your estate. What do you do before, while you're here, so that it can help you afterwards? Can you hear me, anyone?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you so much. So tonight, I'm just going to talk about this person that I'm going to bring on. Tonight, we've got two people, actually, and I think it's the first time that we're bringing two people into the topic. So from the month of January, like I said, we've been looking at the money series. We've looked at so many topics and so many ways of which we can become better financially. And tonight, this is all part of the money series. I'm introducing Peju Ojemuiwa. She lives in the UK with her family. She's a regulated immigration consultant, and I've done so for over 15 years. Aside helping people migrate to the UK, she's also passionate about helping women, and that is why she's here, living their best life and becoming who they desire to be. We believe that we possess the inherent ability to become who we desire to be, regardless of where we are right now or what we have been through. This passion has led her to getting her certification as a life coach and subsequently the launch of our coaching company, Power to Become Consult. Yeah, she specializes in helping women tap into their inherent power so that they can become the woman that you have been designed to be and to achieve your dreams without limitations. She has done this quite a lot in private, but ready also to go public to enable her to reach and to serve more women. She's also a cancer survivor. She got diagnosed in 2020 in the heat of the pandemic, but thank God for healing, she is now cancer-free. Maybe somebody wants to put a fire, a star, or whatever in the chat. This led to the launch of a non-profit at the Sacred Place UK, a community for people dealing with cancer. As a woman of multiple gifts and potentials, she wears so many hats. some of which you will get to see as we progress tonight. And it's an honor that you're here, sis. It's an honor that what you're doing privately, you're now bringing it public. It's an honor to have you here tonight as a member of Pass the Baton. And guess what? She's always been here anyway, but I think tonight, she's actually now passing the baton to us as women. So yes, we're just gonna give it to you and just let you to pass the baton. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pastor Bumi, PB. Thank you so much for sort of giving me the opportunity to share with everyone on Pass the Baton this evening.
I think there is a music coming from you. I'm not sure. Are you playing any music?
No, not from me. It's probably from someone else.
Okay, perfect. It's good now.
Yes. So good evening, everybody. My name is Peju Ojemuyiwa, and PB, thank you once again for this opportunity to share with everyone. And as PB has said, really my passion is just to help and people sort of grow, be the best that you can be. And we'll be looking at a topic this evening called estate planning. So a bit about me as well. I run some of the businesses I run. PB as mentioned. I also sit on other businesses as non-executive director. I'm an astute investor and entrepreneur. And I believe that, there's so much in every woman, going back from that Proverbs 31, there's so much that we have in us and the power in us. And, some of the things that do not allow us to do what we need to do is possibly because maybe, we don't have enough information sometimes, or we've got to a point where we lack a bit of confidence in ourselves. And that's what I do to help build that confidence back again and help us to get to where we want to go. So this evening, as part of the money series that we've been having since January, as PB says, we're looking at estate planning and starting a succession plan for the here and after. I know many people do not like to talk about the after, but even here, starting a succession plan is really, really important. And I'm going to make it a bit interactive for us. I'm going to ask, some questions just to start. To start off, to say, can you have an estate without a succession plan? If you could just sort of, type in the chat box for me, can we have an estate without having a succession plan? Can that happen? If you just let me know, is it yes or no, answer. What do you think? No. Okay, somebody said no, you can't have an estate without a succession plan. And, is anybody else anyone else? Can we have an estate without a succession plan? Okay, that's fantastic. Someone says, I think you can. Okay, and the next question is, can we have a succession plan without an estate? Can we have a succession plan without an estate? Okay, Wumi, you said you think so. So I'm not too sure whether Wumi's question is to my answer is to my first or, to my second question there. But I'm assuming that maybe that's for my second question. Do you think so? Which is the fact that we can have a succession plan without an estate. So someone is thinking. So I'm going to just go back to the first question. Can we have an estate without a succession plan? And the answer is, yes, we can have an estate without, a succession plan, as many, many people do. And as we get to, absolutely, somebody just said the government takes over when you die. That's what happens when you have estates without a succession plan. Somebody takes over it, somebody that you didn't plan. But I'm not going to talk too much about that because that's what my, my co-anchor today is going to sort of speak about. And we want to prevent that. We want to show you and discuss how your plans can actually, come to fruition here and after. And the second question was, can we have a succession plan without an estate? And the answer is no. We must have something. And that's the area where I'm going to be focusing on this evening, estate building, because we must have something before we can actually start planning a succession plan for it. So we can't have a succession plan without an estate. We need something that we're going to pass on. Proverbs 13:22, we know, all of us know this, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And by this, you know that this helps to keep our life's goals, our visions, our legacy at the front and center of what we are doing. When we have this at the back of our mind, we're able to choose how we use our money that we're working for. that we are building today, we begin to weigh what we want now against what we really want later. And it helps us to start sort of thinking about it when we have this at the back of our minds. If it is something that is important to you, of course, because some people may be thinking that, you know what, I really don't want to do anything about leaving an estate. But one of the things I say is that if you're working and you're not eating everything that you're working today, and you're not spending it all on yourself, and you're leaving it for tomorrow, then you must be having a plan for it. Otherwise, like somebody said there, somebody's going to take it, somebody you didn't plan for. So we know also that inheritance is not limited to money, because otherwise you give an inheritance to your successors, might be the children, might be other people that you have in mind as successors. And if they do not have the same character, the same zeal, the same vigor that you have, the same qualities like integrity, trustworthiness, combining that with, financial, intelligence and, wisdom, then again, the succession planning here is beginning to have problems. The Bible says that, if the foundation is faulty, what can the righteous do? So we've got to make sure when we start our succession planning with our estate, the foundation that we're building right while we're here is secure. We begin to look at what are the things that can shake this foundation even while we're here. And then we put measures in place to mitigate those things, And, I know that I'll give examples as I go, but I don't want to, sort of maybe use, too much examples that, that will go into, the succession planning that Kemi will sort of speak about later. So what is an estate? Let's think about this, because one of the reasons I started to think, why do people not plan? Why do they not plan? And in speaking with people, financial, education, which is something I also do as a rounded support, I've realized that sometimes it's because people or individuals feel that they have nothing. They feel like, they have nothing that they are passing on. And one of the things I then sort of try to do with every individual, what I'm doing with you today as well, is do not wait until you have acquired, something massive. As long as you have an asset, no matter what that asset is, you should be having a plan for it. Because otherwise, in the here and after, something happens and it becomes an after, no longer here, then somebody else will be the one taking away what you have worked for and worked hard for. And I sort of, I know I did sort of, define what an estate was. So an estate is everything comprising the net worth of an individual. It includes your landed properties, real estate, possessions, financial securities, cash, literally everything that makes up your net worth is your estate. So for those of us, we've been listening to this, money series since January. Some of us may have, gone into, taking on one or two businesses, in addition to our jobs, for example. Some of us may have invested in one or two other things. Now, all of those things are coming together to be your net worth. Even if it's a car, it's a net worth. Somebody says, I don't have anything. But by the time you start digging down and helping them to think, actually, what do you have? So actually, I have £100 in this account. Somewhere in Nigeria, I have maybe, 500,000 naira in shares somewhere. I have this somewhere. And by the time you start bringing it together, what they thought was nothing becomes something, actually. And they need to start planning what they want in terms of succession for that. Now, Proverbs 11, Ecclesiastes 11, 1-6. I'm going to read this because I want to bring something out of it as part of just speaking about why do we need to build our estate, which is where I am at the moment. Why are we building? Because if we do not have an estate, we have no succession plan. So Ecclesiastes 11, 1-6 says, cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Give a portion to 7, or even to 8, for you know not what disaster may happen on earth. I need to pause there. I was speaking to a lady, she's an elderly lady. So if you want to look at it in a way, call it my older self. And, I was speaking with her and just getting some nuggets. And she used to be a very sort of astute businesswoman, very successful in her own days. And she was like, oh, there was a time that, the business, just, went down and, everything just fell. And she just attributed this to perhaps it's the enemy, people that maybe, didn't want good for her. And I said, ma'am, with all due respect, it may be so. But actually, was that your only source of income? She said, yes. I said, in the world, things happen. Government policies, disaster happens. And I mean, look at what happened in COVID. My industry, my immigration industry that I've been in all these years, was one of the first that was impacted the moment COVID happened. Because guess what? Most of our clients started canceling all their contracts because they were not recruiting staff from overseas anymore. Imagine, so what happened to that business? Of course, we went through a downhill, as with many other people later on. It started to impact on everyone. If that was my only source of income, if that was the only business I had, then what would have happened to that, to my estate planning? So while we're planning our estate and building as well, we've got to be thinking about risk and mitigating the risk, which is why having several sources of income is really important. And this is what this verse was saying here. For you know not what disaster may happen. It goes on to say in verse 4, he who observes the wind will not sow, and he who regards the clouds will not reap. I know there's some people that every time they always think, oh, it's not time. Every time an opportunity comes their way, is not time. It's always tomorrow. I'm going to start tomorrow, procrastination. And therefore, they're only in that spot. And my question, if something happens to that singular thing you're doing, if a government policy or a natural disaster such as Ukraine incidents going on at the moment, the war, that has also impacted on several things. And which is why, for example, in the UK at the moment, we begin to see this impact on our utilities. Everything is going up. And we've seen the sign on the wall. They're giving us this information. Joseph knew, God showed him that, look, there was famine coming, and he prepared. And what are we doing when we are building? How are we preparing to make sure that this estate that we are building, there's actually something there to pass on for succession? How are we securing it as well? And that's where, I wanted to sort of talk about having multiple sources of income, because when you look at the verses I've just read in Proverbs, it then goes on to say in verse, I believe, bear with me, in verse 5, it says in verse 6, in the morning, this is really important, in the morning sow your seed, and at evening withhold not your hand, for you do not know which will prosper, this or that, or whether both alike will be good. This is the way life is. In 2007, I believe about 2005, 6, 7, the UK was in a recession. Property prices were really, really, really low. And, many people were able to buy, some didn't buy, some lost at the time. But now the property prices they've gone up since 2013, they've gone up really, really high. But we know that it's all a cycle. There'll be a time, that things will go around again. So if you're focusing on just one source of income, for example, what happens when a tide happens? So this is me just encouraging you to run towards opportunities when you see an opportunity. You may not totally understand it. Richard Branson said something and said, if someone presents you an opportunity and you do not know how to do it, say yes first and then learn on the way. And I know that some of these things that they've already said they've shared all the different perhaps ways you can earn income, be more financially free since January that we've been going through the money series. So this is me just sort of recapping on that, because if you don't have, these are the things that help to make up your estate. And I sort of defined what the estate was, which is your self-worth. What are the things that make up your self-worth? So for example, I mentioned about the news we're hearing about utilities, everything's sort of going up recently. How are we planning to mitigate these price hikes on our family's finances? Because this is going to affect our net worth, and is also going to affect whatever estates that we have and we are building at the moment. So hence we need to have our risk planning, risk mitigation strategies towards this. So I'll move on very quickly now. And I've spoken about, a bit of protection even while we're building. So while we are here and we are building, we need to think about protecting what we're building. And part of protection is having multiple streams of income, not just one thing. Other part of protection is protecting the person and the people who are actually the ones bringing in the income. Then when we're doing that, the next thing is we're thinking of legacy. We've talked about a good man leaves an inheritance, for his children's children. Why leave a legacy? After building your estate, not having a legacy can wipe out all your hard work. That's what it can do. And this is why the succession planning here is as important as afterwards. Afterwards happen to be all the things that you put in your wills and trust and all these sort of things, what you want to happen. But here, how are you putting that plan in place? Making sure, I did mention about, the right people, the right, sort of nuggets to give to those that you have as an intention to succeed on all of these businesses, all of these different things that you're building. They must have, you must invest in them. And this is why I really love this pass the baton, platform as well, because we are passing the baton to one another, but also to our next generation so that they can take the baton, sort of run with it, gain all the skills. We invest in them to the extent that they can take and move on, with what has been built and sort of take it to the next level with the tools, skills, and values that have been sort of instilled in them. Otherwise, succession plan fails. So succession plan, it's not so much as just saying, oh, this is the person I want to succeed me, or this is, the people I want to sort of take over this estate or this business or things like that. What happens if they don't have the right skills or they don't have what it takes, sort of skill-wise, knowledge-wise about it, about what you're doing? How do you mitigate that? So sometimes you might need to sort of bring in third parties and different things. So, but I'm not going to go delve into that succession plan now. I'm going to hand over to Kemi very, very, very soon. But I think from my perspective is really to say, look, how do we build the estate? And I did mention that sometimes, which is where I give the coaching the power to become. I've come across women where, because they've been homemakers for such a long time, some have sort of lost confidence in themselves. They're thinking, how do I even start? I've been a homemaker for 13 years. I'm in my mid 40s now, or I'm in my early 40s. I don't know how to begin. Who would even employ me? I'm not even sure I have anything to offer. And you know what? You have something to offer. Everybody has something to offer. We just need to find out what it is that you have to offer and you can give. And which is why this platform is great, because PB has said it, like in terms of we pass the baton one to another. We share nuggets, we share common challenges, and we share solutions to say, look, this is how we can overcome, this solution, and this is how we can get from point A to point B. And of course, we'll be able to sort of support with that and help with that. So I would just sort of end here. I hope that I've been able to sort of help you to know that you can have an estate and not have a succession plan. And what that means is, all one's hard work would have gone to waste. I keep saying to people, if you are working so hard and you're not securing what you are working for, you might as well just be working just enough for you to eat on a daily basis and not be bothering about, saving for tomorrow or even for the children's future or for your retirement. You might as well not be bothering, because, it means that somebody else is going to be taking that. And if you're then bothering with succession planning and you're thinking, actually, this is what I want to happen afterwards, then you need to ensure that you have the right systems, the right processes in place to think about this succession planning. And this is where I'll sort of hand over to ensure that I don't encroach in Kevin's succession planning. Thank you so much, PB.
Well, thank you so very much for sharing on that you can have an estate without having a succession plan. So you can build everything. And like you said, then we leave the world, which death is inevitable anyway. And we should not be scared about talking about it, because we would have built, what we need to happen. We'd have had a plan in place. And on this note, I want to say thank you so much. I mean, I've written a few things down that, yes, not compromising, and the worth of an individual, thinking about yourself. There's no point, to be honest, having all of this wealth, all of this, different sources of income, investing, building empires, where there's no succession plan. Like I think it was Sister Wumi that said it earlier on. And then the government comes and dips into it, and they can do it whatever they like. So on this note, I'm just going to invite the next person. Her name is Elizabeth Oluwakemi, just like the Queen. I mean, the Queen has been reigning, isn't it, for a while now. So we've been talking about the Queen, the Queen, the Queen. So yes, she's got the Queen's name as well. She's a legal practitioner called to the Nigerian bar in 2014. Her practice areas are estates and succession planning, labor and employment law, litigation, arbitration, am I correct? And law practice management. She is a graduate from the Lagos State University, Ojo. She practiced in the chambers of Professor A.B. Kasumu-san from the year of a call till 2014, where she resigned to a senior counsel. I tell you, people who do law, you have to read everything. They pride in this. So I'm trying to read everything. She was general manager at Chartered Institute of Arbitration UK Nigerian branch from June 2014 to June 2017. She thereafter joined Patrell Partners, a corporate commercial law firm in Lagos, as a partner in September 2017, and exited the partnership in July 2020 to start our own law legal Meridian legal firm. She is a member and accredited tutor of the faculty of the Chartered Institute of Arbitration UK member, and tutor of the Lagos Court of Arbitration, member of the Nigerian Bar Association, section on business law. She is also a certified public speaker with certification from the London School of Business and Finance. She is the founder of Year and After, an enlightenment platform on estate and succession planning, which she joined in 2019 on Instagram on Year and After 20. So I'm going to put her Instagram details, and Year and After 20. She is a non-executive director of Asa Microfinance Bank, Abuja, member of advisory board, Kids Court School, Lagos, and member advisory board, Dorcas Cancer Foundation. Her hobbies are reading, traveling, counseling, teaching, and meeting people. She's married with 2 lovely kids. Basically, let me tell you the summation of everything. She is qualified to be here. That's it. Thank you so much for coming and pass the baton. We appreciate you. Please, can you just give her lots of love and stars?
Thank you.
Going to school is not easy. All of that I've read is not easy. Even I'm reading it, I'm like, wow, 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 wow. So we just want to say thank you for coming on to pass this baton on to us. I feel that, this is such a needed topic, especially in the community where we come from. A lot of people don't talk about it. We shy away from it. I think we think that, even our parents, whenever you start to talk about this, they're like, I'm not dying yet. No one is saying anyone is dying. We're talking about planning. We're talking about making sure that the foundation is right. That's what we're talking about. And it's so important that we have these discussions and that we talk about it, so that when we talk about it, we can have the right knowledge to make the right and informed decision. So thank you so much. I'm just going to leave you to pass the baton. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, PB. Thank you, Peju, for inviting me. And thank you, everyone, for logging in. So I will just dwell straight into it, because Peju has said a lot of things that, has laid the foundation for me. So I won't try going through, all that. But I would just say that estate planning is as important as breathing, but we don't think it's that important, or rather we shy away from it because nobody wants to die. Everybody wants to make heaven, but nobody wants to die. But the truth is, death is inevitable. And I think for me, where I got most of my passion for it in line of my practice is where I realized that when I was called to the bar in 2004, most of the cases that came my way were estate cases. So we're always going for meetings in estates, and we'll talk, we'll be there for 7, 11 hours, and we make no headway. So I always go back to my principal and I will say, But Prof, why is it that the person did not just plan, you know? So we won't have to come and sit down and try to manage egos and try to appeal to everybody's senses. And trust me, no matter how educated a person is, when it comes to inheritance, they are a different person entirely. And I'm sure that everyone here can attest to having witnessed one or currently being involved in an estate issue within their families, maybe extended or immediate, or they called you to mediate at some point. And you'll be shocked that children of even the same mother and father do not agree when it comes to distribution of the assets that have been left behind. No matter how small or large the estate is, everybody just feels entitled to it and they don't want the other person to have a share of it. So it bestows on the owner of the estate. And like Peju has said, you have lived and you have built, or you are currently building. And the idea is, oh, I want to leave something behind. Or even if you have a, you know, a young family and you're thinking, oh, what if something happens to me? Will my children be taken care of? And the truth is, if you do not have a plan, your children will go from grace to grass in 2 seconds. Because where there is no plan, there's no immediate access to your funds. So it's a bit difficult for anybody to just go straight and lay claim and say, oh, they go to the bank and say, oh, we're sorry, our sister died yesterday. Can we have all the money in the account? We want to pay school fees. We want to do this. We want to, honestly, nothing can be done. So you can have millions and millions in your account, but your children will go from grace to grass in 2 seconds because 1, there's no access to funds. 2, you have not sort of identified, especially whether you have a spouse or you do not have a spouse. So, you know, we're in different categories of women. Some are bereaved, some are widows, some are single, some are separated, some are in situationships, but you have children and you are currently taking care of these children. And then you haven't thought of, what if something happens to me? I think if there's nothing anybody has learned in this lifetime, we've learned that with COVID, anything can happen at any time. So you can go from healthy to unhealthy in 2 hours. And then, you know, absolutely no plan. What happens in the event that, oh, something happens to me? Who are the first set of people that can step in and manage what I've left behind? So basically, that's what an estate plan should, you know, rather inform you to do, because you think that, okay, once I have a plan, honestly, you can go on a plane and sleep and not be scared, even if there's turbulence. You should be scared because, of course, you don't want to die in a plane crash. But then you would not be worried that, oh, everything you've left behind, you had no plan, nobody is going to, you know, be able to have access to it, because that's the first thing. No matter how rich you are, once nobody has access to what you've left behind, then it's going to be a bit difficult for people to, you know, do that. And then do people even know what you have? Because quite a number of people have things spread across jurisdictions. So you have something in Nigeria, you have something in the UK. Honestly, you are the only one that knows you have all these things. Nobody else. Maybe a friend here or there, you know, you mentioned to one friend and another item to another friend. But when someone passes on, I don't think the first thing people do is to sit down and ask, oh, what did he or she leave behind? You know, especially if they're just thinking, oh, this is such a sad occurrence, what do we do? And then, you know, their mind go off it. You've borrowed people money, nobody knows, you know. You're the only one that knows you borrowed somebody a huge sum of money and then something happens to you. The person, if the person is morally guided, might just come and offer something to your family as a token and say, oh, let's give them something. But they may never return the money they borrowed from you, because of course you're gone and nobody else knows that they borrowed, you know, you borrowed them some money and all that. So that's the reason why it's really important to plan your estate, whatever level you are in life. And I like to deal with examples. So I had this very young cousin who passed on in 2020, and she was just 30. So when she passed on, because of my line of job, I just said, oh, I'm sure she had a few things because she's been working for a while. You know, I said, oh, I'm sure she has, even if she doesn't have anything, I'm sure she has pension because she's working. And we just sort of said, okay, let's pursue the letters of administration. And by the time we went around, I'm telling you, cumulatively, we came to about 50 million naira that she had. So if I wasn't informed and didn't push every other person around to say, oh, let's try to find, you know, what she left behind, I'm telling you, the account officer and the federal government will have a largesse, because somebody will just be having, they know nobody's going to come for the money. Because after a while, they know an account that becomes dormant, and you don't have access to it. Also, there's also a lady that in the thick of COVID, she reached out to me and said, oh, she wanted to write her will. I think she had been critically ill, but there was a lockdown, so we couldn't move around. But we tried to conclude this thing virtually. And the day I sent the final draft to her and said, okay, you can sign, because courier services could move around. So I sent it to her. She died the next morning, so she didn't sign. And her kids reached out to me and said, oh, we know she had been talking to you about. I said, unfortunately, that document is useless because the instructions there were not signed. So there's really nothing we can do. If she had signed it, yes, we can, sort of lodge it at the appropriate registry. But right now she didn't sign it. So you are going to just have to do as you please with her assets. And then you will have to apply for letters of administration. And then when it comes to women and their marital statuses, it's quite important, because some people do not know that the relationships they're in do not qualify them for inheritance. And I'll give an example. So if you are married and you are married under native law and custom, so this is talking to the Africans here or Nigerians, and you have never been married under the Act, if your spouse passes away, his assets will be divided under native law and custom. And we know what most native law and customs provide for anyway. The woman is considered an asset in herself. So that you are inheriting from him is most remote. Your children will inherit, but you as the wife may not inherit. However, if you are married under the Act, then you are entitled to 1/3 of that's under the Act, in Nigeria, and that's also recognized in the UK. However, under the laws of England as well, if you are merely cohabiting, so you've stayed 25 years with somebody, and I have a story for that. This woman, the man left Nigeria and left his wife here that he had married under the Act, and they moved to the UK those early days. And for some reason, they went their separate ways. He got separated from his wife here, and he met some other woman that he spent 20 or 30 something odd years with, and then he passes on. So the woman in the UK goes to say, oh yeah, we've been cohabiting. Well, they never married, because he couldn't have even married her under the Act when he was already married to somebody else here, except he divorced the person. But they had lived together, they had children. And she was going to, apply for letters of and lay claim to it. But his wife from Nigeria came and said, no, I'm his legal wife. Even though in terms of the number of years they both spent with the man, one person has spent longer, but the other person has just spent longer in duration, but has not qualified for anything, because even the laws of England do not recognize cohabiting as a marriage. So a woman needs to understand her role in her marriage. What is my status? Am I married under the Act? Am I married? Am I just cohabiting? Am I in civil partnership? If you are neither in civil partnership nor married under the Act, you are not entitled to inherit from your spouse. That's a given. If you are married under the Act, then you have some rights, which if the person has not left a will or any form of distribution of his assets, then you're entitled to inherit. Same thing goes for the woman. When anything happens to you and you don't have a will, whoever it was you were married to and you never divorced, under the laws of England, will be entitled to, if the value of your assets are 270,000 or more, the person gets the first 270,000. Then half of what is left. Then your children get the remaining half. So you can imagine having separated, because a lot of people have gone into separations that have not crystallized into divorces. So you've been away from somebody for 15 years, but you've never divorced. If something happens to you, the person will come joy-free and partake of whatever it is you've left behind, if you do not have a will. If you do not have some form of estate plan in place. So this is just to tell you how important it is to have an estate plan in place. Because if you have situationships in your life that you realize that, look, I wouldn't want this person or that person being involved in my business when I'm not there, then you have to arrange your business in such a way that it will be clear that you had no intention for that person to be involved in your business. But if you leave it to chance, the law takes its place. And the law doesn't look at what was going on in the relationship. Were they married? Yes. Is he entitled? Yes. And then the person gets it. And if whatever they had is even less than 270, the spouse just takes everything. And your children will get nothing because they're secondary after the spouse. And that's under the laws of England. In Nigeria, on the other hand, the assets you have here, if you don't have a will, well, most times women, we don't find where men are being challenged for the assets of their wives. Once a woman passes on, everything she has left behind automatically becomes that of her husband. Then he will leave what he likes to the children or whatever, so be it, But if the woman has a will of some sort, then she can say, oh, this is the way I want to do this or do that. We also have situations where when we're raising our kids, we know that there are some personality traits that they have. And we know that if we leave them with everything that we have, it won't last a day. We know, we live with them every day. We know that these children or this child cannot handle it. What do? We set mechanisms in place. And that's where you have an example of, my slide. I just wanted to speak to the examples rather than use the slide because I find that it's a bit distracting sometimes for me as well. So, we know that our children have certain behavioral traits and that if we leave things to them, they just let it waste. They would let it waste. For those kind of situations, you set up a trust. You set up a trust because it is more stringent in its approach. It's more, it's almost like opening an account. So you require so many things to set up a trust that by the time you are done, nobody is confused as to what your instructions were. So, you have a child and you're like, all these things I have, I put it in trust. He should be getting, or he or she should be getting monthly or periodic payments of some sort or towards their education. And at a point in time, maybe they get a lump sum. You can give all those instructions, but you do that with an institution as opposed to individuals. If you write a will, at some point, the executors of the will, and these are the people that you put in charge of the will, they're also going to die. And when they die, if you have not made, if you've not made provisions for alternative executors, then their own administrators take over your estate. And that was never the intention. So when planning your estate, how do I go about planning my estate will be the next thing I will talk about. And it will be one, as Pedro said, all these things you put together, you have to be able to articulate your assets. What are the things I have, home and abroad? You try to collate a list. You try to identify where these things are and their current status. When you've done that, you now identify who are the people that I want to benefit from these things that I have, and you list out your beneficiaries. Now, your beneficiaries do not need to be your relatives alone or your blood. You can give it to anybody, honestly. You can give it. That's why you find people give things to churches. They give stuff to their old boys or old girls association, their school, their alma mater. People just give out. So you can give to anybody. And then you now identify those you will put in charge of these things when you're gone. I always say to my clients that in choosing these people, you have to choose someone that is a bit like-minded. So amongst the numerous people you have around you, you might look for someone that, okay, I know that if anything happens to me, at least to a large extent, this person would think like me. So if you are the kind that, I want my child to go to a certain school, and I've made provisions for that, you want someone that can actually ensure that your child will be guided through that process and go to that school in your absence. And that's where things like legal guardianship comes in. If you have minors, if your children are already old enough, you can make them executors of your will. But then again, you have to watch the personality of these children, because you put one person in charge of everything over and above the rest of them, and then the person thinks they're Lord and Master, and the others get nothing. Even if you've written there that this is how you want to do it, they will make sure they frustrate the process because they are in charge, so to speak. And that brings me to another example. So we have a classic example of a woman that worked so hard here. She has one of the biggest schools here, and she has just 2 children. 2 male adults. And honestly, they've been at each other's throats since their mother died. To run a school that is so large that if they decide not to work for the rest of their lives, they have more than enough. They don't have, so they're the same mother, same father. They don't, it's not that they are separate or they are from a polygamous home. They're just 2 men. So it's not a woman-man thing, both male adults over the age of 40. And, you know, one person has the attitude of, I don't care. All I want is to control this. And the other person is, no, this is my mother's legacy. We need to preserve it. And you have these 2 egos constantly competing to the detriment of the school itself. And they're just 2 people. Now, my first reaction to that was, she should never have made them directors of her business. Or she should have added other neutral people on the board so that it diffuses whatever, there would always be a majority. So this is her thinking, oh, it's a company. I've made my children director. If anything happens to me, they can manage it. But now the 2 directors cannot agree, and they are the only 2 directors. And that has left a huge problem for the rest of us, because there are people that are now being affected by their actions. One person does not want to sign, one person, and you need both of them to agree to sign, and they're not agreeing. So sometimes in planning, in a succession plan, especially when you have a business, you don't have to put your children on the board. They can be shareholders, but they do not have to be directors. Directors are the people that run the day-to-day affairs of your company. The shareholders are the people that benefit from the profits of the company. So you don't have to say, oh, because they're my children, I only want myself, my family, and everybody on board, especially if it's something that is going beyond you. If it's a small, you know, factory that you don't care, maybe even a bread factory can grow so big that it's bigger than the original person that started it. So, you know, you want things like putting neutral people that have worked with you, people you have groomed, and say, okay, my children will be there, but, you know, these other people too should be there. And that's where you begin to look for like-minded people to say, be on my board, so that when there is any issue, at least there will be someone, there won't be a deadlock at any given point in time. This story I'm saying is so real that teachers were not paid salaries in a private school because 2 people cannot agree, and because it's an inheritance. So you begin to think, oh, so all these things this woman has built, the school is over 20 years old. So it didn't just start yesterday. And you're thinking, so this is how empires crumble after the first person. The second generation cannot maintain it. They do not have the set skill. They do not have the interest. They are just focused on the money. And when the owner was alive, you know, you can imagine day in, day out, sweating it out just to make sure this thing thrives. That's why it's very painful that you will be building something now and you would not put a plan in place. Because if you have the opportunity to see what goes on when you are not there, you will realize that I should have done right by myself and by these children. But if you know that, you know, it really doesn't concern you. You know, some people, what will be. Once I'm gone, that's the end. Anything anybody likes, let them do. Then that's fine as well, because it's a choice. So you can sweat it out, live your best life now, and just know that, well, when I'm gone, whatever, if they like, they should burn it to the ground. I really don't care. Then that's fine as well. It's also a choice. But if your desire is to pass it on to generations yet unborn, then you must have a plan. Because the beauty of having a plan is you can actually make provisions for your grandchildren that you have not met. And that is where it says, a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children and his children's children. It's scriptural. It's not as if, you know, God doesn't think about it. Having a plan is scriptural. Leaving an inheritance is scriptural. So it is designed that you must plan for here and after. We also look at things like joint ownership of assets. Quite a number of people jointly own assets with their spouses or with other people. And there are two distinctions. So they're the ones that, you know, when you jointly own as joint tenants, if you look at your purchase agreements, maybe after this discussion, you can go and look at, you know, the purchase agreement in which you bought your property as Mr. and Mrs. whatever. If you find joint tenants there, it means that when one person dies, it automatically becomes the property of the other person. However, if your tenants are common, there's no automatic inheritance. And this is where you have things like you are divorced. So you've been married, you've jointly owned assets, and now you're divorced, and you've not gone to look at what the provisions of your agreement states. Because what you've done in effect is that whoever goes first, the other person just gets it. Your life insurance, the person you have listed as your next of kin. This is where estate planning comes in, because you now begin to sit down and go back in time. Now, there are people that, you know, at the beginning of time, when they had not even acquired anything, when they were filling their bank forms, they had put this person as next of kin, they had listed this person, but your life has changed since then. That next of kin, you probably don't talk to the person anymore. And then there's somebody else, and then you have children, and then, so you need to review your documentation as time goes on to ensure that you bring it up to your current realities. Even if we live here tonight and you write a will, by next year, 2 years, you should relook. You should have a second look at your will and say, okay, this thing that is there, is it still my present circumstance? Have things changed? When we draft wills sometimes, you know, we put clauses like, in the event that this person is not there when I pass on, what happens to that asset that you were going to give to that person? Where does it go to? Who should get it? So it's such a thoughtful process that it's not something you just rush into. But like, you know, you've been learning how to put your money together, you've been learning how to build your resources, then you also want to ensure that you are planning for when you are not there. And trust me, it can be at any time. It's really not, oh, it happened today, or I know, you know, with long life will it satisfy me. With long life will it satisfy all of us. But you can even become ill that you will not be able to move. In that intervening period, do you have any plan? Because that's part of your estate plan. That's part of your planning. A power of attorney, a medical trust, something in place that will kick in the event that something happens to you. But like I've said earlier, and I'll just go back to that again, it's that you have to put all that you have together on a sheet of paper. Just take a pen and a paper. I know most of us have journals that we use, and just begin to think, okay, what are those things that I have? Okay, I have this house here, or I have this thing in Nigeria, or I have this bank account. I think I have some money there. Because the truth is, honestly, for those of you that are abroad, do you think your children will come all the way to Nigeria to come and lay claim to one house that they don't even know where Ikorodu, Lekki, Ikeja, they have no idea what that is? And that's what we see. So we have quite a number of elderly people that when they pass on here, you know that before their children come, the domestic staff and all those around them would have cleaned out their whole house. Because before you take permission from work and you start coming to Nigeria, there were some people there. The people they've been sending to use their ATM cards to withdraw money. The people that have been collecting things from them that you've been sending from abroad and all those things, you know, there are people there. So before anybody comes, they would have cleaned out what they want to clean out in their house. Then you come up, and then when you are coming, you're not even coming to begin to search to see whether, you know, they left any, your own is okay, let's come, do this burial, and then everybody goes back to post. So you can imagine when you are living there, then you have so many things here, and nobody even knows about it. Now, that is what comes into your plan. So you say, oh, I have this in Nigeria. If anything happens to me, let it be so. The money converted to pounds and sent to my children. It's as simple as that. But at least you would have articulated it somewhere, and then we know that, okay, you had a house in Lekki, or you have one house in Ikorodu, or you have one house in Ikoyi, or you have one house, and this is what should be done to it if anything happens to you. Because you know your children will not live where they are and come and chase anybody here. No matter how old they are, Nigeria is a different terrain entirely. Once they come in fact, they'll be confused from the airport. And it's whoever they meet here tells them to do, they will most likely listen to and do. Oh, your mom left this. Oh, just come around. Let's go and have a look at it. And then they come. And, you know, everything is also strange. But if you put a plan in place, then it will make it easier for them when they come in to, you know, whatever it is they're coming to do, maybe just sign up some papers or do one thing, and then they're out. But then you would have planned it. Same thing with the things you have there. You have insurance, you have pensions, you have all sorts of things. Some of you had worked in Nigeria before you left for the United Kingdom. You have things you've left behind here. Have you ever thought about what would happen to it? Yes, you currently have one caretaker of somebody that's taking care of it, but trust me, if you don't do anything about it, the caretaker would transfer the property to their own children. And that's where it ends. Is that the reason why you've been working so hard? Is that the reason why you are even investing in Nigeria? Oh, they told you, oh, there are these properties you can buy, you can make money, you can have it. And you're like, okay, let me just, you know, send this money home, buy this property. How much is it really? And be getting rents from it. But you're the only one that has this information. Nobody else knows about it. So that's the value of planning your estate, really, because if you don't sit down to articulate the things that you have and decide that these are the things I want to do, then you are in for a shocker in the afterlife. Because if you can sit back and watch, if God gives you the opportunity to see what is going on in the afterlife, then you are thinking, oh God, I should have done this differently. Oh, I should have done this. Oh, I should have done that. Oh, I should have had a plan. Oh, I should have written a will. Oh, I should have, you know, done even your jewelry. Do you think about it? Or what happens to all my personal effects? Your jewelry, your Hermes bag, all your designer stuff that you have tucked away somewhere. You should give it to somebody. Do you just want, well, if you really don't care, then you can leave it to anybody that comes into your apartment to take it off. But they take it to charity, since there's nobody coming to lay claim to it. So there's no, you shouldn't invest so much in living now if you do not have a plan for an after. You keep building. Yes, you don't have so much now, but the little that you have, you should sit down and put it in a plan. And then you build as you go along. Oh, I've now acquired this, then you include it. I've now acquired this, then you include it. And you know, as you go along. And if you are so established, then you need it more than anybody else. You should begin to look at your children. Would these children be interested in this thing I'm about to leave behind? Maybe it's just a good time to say, if I die, sell off my shares to any interested investor. The money should be shared equally amongst everybody. Or the money should be used to buy a house where everybody, you know, something. You would have put that plan in place, but you don't leave things and just think, oh, well, they will get along. They won't get along. You can't force, and the truth is, see, your children are with you now. When they get married, it's a different ballgame. And then, you know, it just begins to expand. Then the ideologies change. Then the things you've introduced them to, everything just begins to change. And you just find that they just can't get along. And one person is trying to dominate the other, or one person is trying to take advantage of the other because one person is quiet, one person doesn't like trouble, the other person is very forceful, you know. And then when you have a polygamous situation, or you have children from, maybe you've had children before you got married, and you know, you don't want to force them to stay together. You want to have a plan and then just sort everybody out. Don't think that, oh, because when they come to visit you now, they're all laughing and giggling and all that, they will get along when you are not there. It's better you just put a plan in place and say, look, if anything happens to me, everything should be shared equally. Because that's when you find that a child that didn't know that he was the first son suddenly realizes, oh, I'm the first and only boy. And therefore, everything comes to me under African culture. And that's the only thing they know about the African culture. But if you decide that, you know what, everything equally to all my children at this time, then you begin to have a proper plan in place. And that is the essence of having an estate it. Fine. Please, if you have any questions, you can drop it so that I can begin to look at it. I know we're conscious of time. I don't want to take so much time, which is why I didn't want to put up my slides, because basically I think I work better with just giving illustrations and speaking to it, because it's a topic that everybody, old and young, and that's why I started with the example of a young person that died that had so much. And if her siblings didn't listen or didn't want to be concerned about it, then the money would just be there. We don't even know if she left properties, because honestly, nobody has had the time to go through her stuff to find title documents here and there. Everybody's still so, sad about her even passing at such a young age. Nobody's going through her things. But maybe in the future, by the time we go through, we'll see some landed properties here and there, and then we can begin to pursue that. But for now, it was just the money in the bank and her pension that was pursued.
Okay, I've got a question for you.
Yes.
Please, if you have questions, you can also use the virtual, put your hands up, and I can always unmute you and you can ask your question, or if you want to put it in the chat. So this story that you have defined, to be honest with you, I've heard so much, so I do understand everything that you're saying. I've heard of recently of a woman who built an empire, and I'm not even talking about millions of naira, I'm talking about pounds. She's wealthy. And honestly, is what you've said, that when she was alive, the children were fine together, but now it's just like everyone is just a roller coaster. And you're so correct in that when people marry, a child can be excellent, but when they marry, they're marrying, they've married somebody else. So it's now them two now coming together as one, and that child can easily change. And I remember, yes, while I was in a will, that's one of the things that they also said about the children, understanding the personal traits of your child. Because when you leave, if they're a spender, I think we've had one of the mindsets money sessions, they spend everything, and it's as simple as that. So this question is, on this one that you have just spoken about, how do you then deal? The woman is dead, she's left to school, and the directors are children, they're not getting along. So how do you then deal with such a situation? Thank you.
Okay, well, unfortunately, it can't be dealt with because they are the beneficiaries of our estate. No third party can come into it. They are the only directors of her company. They are her only surviving beneficiaries. So there's nothing anybody can do except maybe speak to them and just get them to think right. In fact, the suggestions that have been going out is just sell the school so that you people would leave, let's all have peace. Because you can't be fighting and not paying teachers' salaries because you are fighting in a private school. It's not a public school. So for the children go to school and teachers say, oh, we're not teaching because we've not been paid for 2 months. So, we parents now went in and we're talking, and they were like, no, this is how I feel about it. And everybody was just taking their position. And, we're saying, we don't even care the fact that you're fighting. We're saying that render a service you've been paid for. But because their personal egos are involved, it's so difficult. So there's really nothing anybody can do about it. It's the same way, someone is a spendthrift and you just give them money. You've given them the money. You can't call them back. Unfortunately, the person that could have called them back is no more there. So nobody else is going. People can only just say, hey, don't spend this money like this. So be careful the way you're spending the money so that, it doesn't waste, so that you don't become poor. If they want to listen, they will listen. If they don't want to listen, they will spend it all. Which is why it is important now. That's why it's called the here. Because you deal with it here so that the after will be tidier. Because once you're gone, that's the end of it. I don't think I've seen anybody that has come back since they've gone to come and make right what they did wrong. Once you are gone, and case closed, That's why I said the only thing you can do is just watch from where you are and be like, oh, if I had known, I would have done this, I would have done that. And then you begin to have all the inspirations and ideas that, you don't have now. So I hope that answers the question. There's really nothing we can do about this situation because somebody has failed to plan. And that's why we have the situation we have. If they come to an agreement to sell the school, it will be better for everybody. Then an investor that is interested in running a school will buy off the school and run the school. And that's the end of the mother's legacy.
And that's what I was about to say. That ends the mother's legacy.
That's the end. That's the end.
That's sad. Okay, I'm just going to unmute you, Modupe Peters. Thank you. I know it's your first time. I think you were the one that sent an email. I've asked you to unmute, so thank you. You can go on now.
Thank you. Thanks, Bumi. Thank you. Yeah, this is my first time. So it's quite interesting. So thank you so much, Pedro and Kemi. It's really lovely, the topic. I think it's really lovely that you've got women on this platform, but it would have been nice if we got men here as well. Because we can't
some of the things I totally understand, especially about this estate planning.
Exactly.
I think maybe we would, but it's a woman's platform. Sorry.
I know. I just thought it'd be, especially when you've got a property and then you're both, you've both got the property together. Because recently, I guess I'm at an age where will was at the paramount of my mind beginning of this year. I'm going to be 50 this year. And then I started making inquiries. And then when I spoke to the lawyer, I was like, oh, am I married? I went, yes. Have you got property? Yes. In both your names, I went, yes. Said it would be ideal if you do a joint will rather than single, because you've got property, so you've got an estate. So it's quite important to stress that, because it was like, I was like, can't I just do one on my own? He said, I would advise you speak to your husband so you can do one. Not that you couldn't do one on your own, but it would be best in your interest if you do one together. So in the end, that was what we did. I just had to go to him, because I spoke to him before, and then I had to, and he was like, oh, do we need to do that? And this is someone that's older than me. I was like, seriously? I was not thinking of that. So he's like, good 10 years older than me. I was like, nah. I think it would be nice, especially for my culture. I'm African, I'm Nigerian. So it'd be nice if the men are kind of involved in this as well. I think it's really lovely what you're doing. But many women, I've spoken to some of my friends, and it's like, my husband don't want to hear about it. He doesn't even want to hear about it. So how do we then do that? If they are not, apart from, especially if you have a property together, because here in the UK, like you rightly both said, if you're still married, even if you're separated, if the man, if you die today, that's it. It's your husband. He's still your next of kin according to the law. So we then need to make sure we're doing things right. So I just thought I would just highlight that. Not that it's a question, but how do you navigate that? But quickly, just questions are taking time. One thing I just wanted to point out, because you haven't stressed on that bit, is the pension bit. Because if you're married and you still, and it's on the record that, because I work in the NHS, and automatically my next of kin is my husband, is my spouse. So it's better if you're separated and you don't want him or her to be, it's women, sorry. It would be him in this instance. You need to change it. You need to go and change your next of kin on your pension record. It's very important. So that's just me. So my question is, how do we navigate that? If you're married and you have a joint property, you're sharing a property with your husband. What do you do? How do you get that sorted?
Okay, I think I stressed the fact that you need to keep reviewing your estate plan when the circumstances of your life changes. It's really important. So even if you write a will today, by next year, you should be reviewing it, because certain things would have changed. Well, to address the issue of joint ownership of properties, the truth is you cannot give out a property that is jointly owned in your will or any estate plan, except you both agree to do it. So for such properties, you can say to your spouse, if you are in good terms, that let's transfer this property to a trust. So the property is now in the name of the trust, and the beneficiaries of the trust will be your children. So that even if anything happens, even if he remarries, the property never becomes his own. You get, it's now in the trust, and the trust is for your children. So that's one way to handle it, if he would be agreeable to it. Other than that, is either he buys it off you, so you collect your money and they go and buy a property in your own name, if things have become acrimonious between the both of you. But if both of you are still in sync, then it would be a good idea to set up a trust and put the assets in a trust. And the beneficiaries of that trust will be your children. That would be one way to go about it. Yeah. There's the question in the group, it had been there before I finished, so I'd just like to address it. What happens when parents have a plan and will, but some people still go against the will? Well, unfortunately, wills can be challenged. But the thing is, to challenge a will, you have to go to court. And then if you go to court, if the court finds that the will was either written under certain circumstances that are against the legal statutory grounds for writing a will, then the will be set aside, or that portion of it. So someone can't just sit down and say, oh, I'm against the will. It's not true. If you are against it, go to court. Except there's something restraining other people from performing, they can go ahead and do what was instructed in the will. But the truth, that's why I said sometimes a will is not the only thing you can do. Because if you know that you have, for example, a polygamous family, or you have some circumstances within your family, and you know that things might not go so smoothly when you are not there, the most appropriate thing to set up is a trust, an institutionalized trust. Because if you put it in a trust, then you are home and dry, except they're going to fight the institution. There's really nothing they can do. And the institution will do what you have instructed them to do with those assets. So they can be angry for all they like, but it's not going to change anything. So if you say you don't get anything until you do your second degree, if that child does not do a second degree, the child will get nothing apart from school fees.
Thank you.
So that's one way to deal with that. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
I know there are a few hands up.
I've got, I'm going to do the hands before. I know people have sent me direct questions as well. Just on Modikwe Peter's one, I mean, it's Father's Day, but we've already got a speaker for Father's Day. I think we're talking about emotional intelligence. So I will look at, hopefully you're still a member of PTB by next year. Father's Day is always the time that we bring our men to come and listen. So definitely this speaker here is not going anywhere. I think she's now owned by Pass the Baton, owned and certified. Thank you. You're doing a great work, I must say.
Thank you.
I'm gonna,
yeah, I just have a quick.
The first person was, yes, I was just going to say.
I just have a quick addition to what Modikwe's question was in terms of where they have the joint ownership of the property and things that, you said, you've rightly said, Kemi, that they can put it in a trust. They can also change, potentially change the ownership structure. I think you touched on that very briefly, to tenants in common. So if you change that ownership agreement initially when you bought it together, where it was joint ownership, you can change it to tenants in common, which means it becomes like a share now, 50-50 equal. And then you can decide what you want to do or what you want to happen to your 50% if anything happens to you. And it will not automatically then pass to a spouse that you have been separated from or things like that, and you own you own that property or those assets together, as long as it's changed to a tenant in common. Possibly why the solicitor was telling you to do your joint will is because the agreement on your property was a joint tenancy. I mean, joint mortgage. Okay, I just thought I'd throw that in here.
Thank you so much for that. Now I'm going to read the next question that was sent to me direct, and then I'm going to call you Temitope Kundayo. So it says here, what about, where do you go change the next of kin information?
Okay, so I think most organizations have updates of data. The same way you change your address, you change your, if you were married, you were single when you filled it and you're now married, you just update your information. And in doing that, you would say you want to change your next of kin. So either you send an email asking for an update form so that you can update your information with the requisite organization. And then in filling the form, you will now say, oh, you are now married, and you write your current name and everything that identifies you presently. And then you change your next of kin. It's just basically updating your information wherever it is, your bank, your insurance, so if you're divorced, if you were married and then you're divorced, you should do it like almost immediately to show that, you've changed your status. You are no longer this name, and then you're no longer with this person, and probably remove the person as a beneficiary under your insurance benefits, things like that. So it's just to go back to ask for an update form and then update your information with the organization so that they have your current details.
Thank you. So now I've asked you to unmute, sis. Do you want to unmute? And yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for this program. In fact, it has lifted my spirit. God bless you real good. Please, my own question is about some of us that are like maybe archaic wives, that we have this notion that whatever we have, even we ourselves, we are our husband's property, that so everything we buy or everything we own belongs to our husbands. How do we, because some of us are from the background that everything I have, everything I own, my children, my property, everything is my husband's. Now that I'm bearing his name, and some culture and some Christian denominations reinforce that. And now, maybe before we relocated to the UK, that was the kind of idea or mindset we had. Now we've relocated to the UK and it's like, oh, really? So there is a life very different from what all the ideas I had when I was back home in Nigeria. How do we now maintain a balance without offending our spouses? If we now come up to say, you know what, I want to separate my property from your property. I want to do my own will. I want to start buying things or registering things in my own name without making the husband feel like, are you planning to divorce? As the spirit of UK entered you, are you beginning to behave like women who will work out on the marriage? You know, because it's a big challenge for me, and I'm struggling to really find my balance in everything you've said. Please, yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that question. Well, to quickly address that, you require a lot of emotional intelligence to deal with this issue. However, just, you know, from what you've said, if you are still in sync with your husband, so there's no issue right now, you people are okay, it's just to say, oh, can we have a plan for the children? Can we set up a trust? And the way the trust works is that both of you will be the settlers of the trust, so yourself and himself, but your children will be the beneficiaries. So all these properties that he has in his name or in your name or you both, you know, so this is not you saying, oh, I want to separate my property now, I want to take my own. What you're putting forward is, you know what, anything can happen at any time. I think you can even go back, you know, based on, oh, I had a discussion and I think we should just set up a trust for these children so that everything is together in one place and they are the beneficiaries of this thing. So all these properties that we have, let's just list them out and put them in a trust. Let's look for a good trust that can manage it. And then we put all these things there so that if anything happens to either yourself or myself, these children will not suffer. I think if you put that forward, is more acceptable than saying, oh, I want to separate what I own from your own, because then there's a problem. However, if subsequently you want to begin to own assets in your, well, I don't know if you want to begin to own assets in your name, you know, you can now start buying those assets in the name of your trust. So anything you buy after you set up the trust, you just buy. So even if it's your personal funds you used to buy it, you just buy it in the name of the trust, knowing fully well that the beneficiaries of that trust will be your children and yourself. Even you yourself can be a beneficiary of your trust. You'll be listed as a beneficiary, but you'll be the settlor because you are setting up the trust. So in your lifetime, there's something called the living trust. You know, in your lifetime, you can say, oh, from these assets, I want to be getting this, or this should come to me, or when I'm old and retired, this is how I want it to be done. You know, you can set up the trust there in the UK. You can set up a trust in Nigeria if you have assets in Nigeria, and they'll be helping you manage it, and they'll be remitting your money to you in whatever form it is you say you want to collect your money. So you can do that without, you know, directly saying that, please, let's separate the things we have. Because you see, the risk of not doing that is if anything happens to you, having suffered and labored to get these things together, somebody else entirely will benefit from it. And I'm sure that's what you're trying to avoid. Yeah. So you don't want someone to come tomorrow that has not partaken in this, your hard work, to be the one to sit down and begin to control things and to the detriment of your children. I don't know how old your children are, but if your children are even now younger and anything, and then something happens to you and then your husband remarries, you know, the property now becomes their property. So a new life has started. But if you move it into a trust, I think it's more acceptable. I'm not saying these discussions are easy. You see, it's not easy to brace these discussions with spouses to say, oh, I want to write my will, or this property that we own together, this is how I want to do it. It's not very easy to have these discussions, but it's just to make us aware. So maybe from after now, we begin to do things slightly differently, bearing in mind that, look, if anything happens to me, I want to be able to at least secure some things for my children. And this is the reason why I'm doing this thing. So it just makes it, you know, tidier than like that. But it's not an easy discussion. And I can use myself as I remember very early in my marriage, I think sometime in 20, I can't remember whether I was 28, 2008 or something thereabouts. My husband had this health scare, and we were in the hospital. We ran from Lekki to Surulere that morning, and they said I should go and bring maybe 250,000. I was confused. I was like, well, like, okay, yes, I can bring it, but can you take him into the theater? They were like, no. So I kept saying to him, can you sign a check? Can you sign a check? Because we don't have a joint account. So, and he's the only one that has the money. My own money was not up to 250,000. I said, can you sign a check? Can you sign a check? And he couldn't even talk. But what I left with that experience, I now said to him, you know that if anything happens to you, I said, one, you could have died that day, because if I was not able to get that money that morning, I had to call my dad. My dad now sent my mom to the bank. She went to withdraw cash and then brought it to me at the hospital. I said, you would have just died, not because you don't have 250,000, but because I can't sign for it. And that would have just been the end of it. So you won't die because we lack funds. You will die because I have no access to your funds. So things like that, you know, are kind of discussions that people should have once in. And if you have a spouse that, you know that will never agree, no matter what, then you need to plan for yourself. Honestly, I don't think there's anything wrong in having a plan that secures you and your children. It just requires a lot of wisdom and proper counseling, financial counseling, knowing the right, investments or whatever to make, and how it can pan. You can do investments without saying, oh, I've now have this investment. And then you write a will and say, oh, this is my investment. If anything happens to me, it goes to my children. Is really as simple as that. But you require a lot of emotional intelligence to have this discussion with your spouse and to be able to tell him that, well, let's do this for the children and not because you want to take anything from him. Yeah. So that would be my advice. I don't know if PB has any advice to give.
Thank you so much on that. I just wanted to state here that, we're not breaking the home front. So please, everyone, we're just trying to make you to understand, law is law. There are legal things. The law is not emotional. The law does not take into account, what has happened on the home front or not. And I feel that as a woman, we want to secure our spouse and we want to secure our children whenever we leave. And if the spouse as well leaves first, I'm sure they want to secure you as well and secure your children. I feel that these are discussions that we need to start to talk about. We need to start to normalize it. We need to talk, there are a lot of examples that you can even give. Give examples of people that that something happened to them in Nigeria. She has just shared one with her husband that if anything had happened to him, that would have been it. So these are discussions that we need to start to think about and we need to start to talk about. You need to understand what is your stake, and what is your stake when you leave concerning your children. You want to take care of them. The whole reason why we get up, work, is because we want to make investments and we want to make our lives better. Yes. So our primary, should I say caretakers when we leave are, to be honest, for a lot of people, your spouse, your children. Then you start to talk about your extended family and all that. So yes, any question from anyone, please? You can just raise your hand. I think I have one I'm going to read. If you are both married, however, you both own a property in your own name, no joint property. So you're both married, you have a property in your own name. How do you work things out? Both of you have both contributed in buying that property, but it's not jointly owned.
Okay, I think it's the same response I gave earlier to say that, whatever plan you decide to go for, I always advise for a trust, especially when, you're not too sure of the dynamics. You can just say, and you make your spouse a beneficiary and yourself a beneficiary, but you just set it up for that purpose. Or if in writing the will, you say, if anything happens to me, this portion of it goes to my husband and the rest goes to my children. You've sort of taken care of that, because if it's in your own name, then it's your own, it's yours. And he probably did that just to make sure that if anything happened, you had access to these things. So, the same way we're thinking, some men are also thinking that, look, let my wife have this thing in her name. In case anything happens to me, she can just continue. She doesn't have to go and seek for help anywhere and all that. So it's still a conversation you must have with your spouse to say, what, let's set something up that takes care of us now and takes care of the children in the events that, anything, a conversation I would encourage us to have with our spouses, to say, these are properties, I've learned this today, and I think more on it, just to have ideas, and then go ahead to choose what works for you. So that would be my advice.
Thank you so much. I'm going to read this question. It will probably be the last question. And once you've answered this question, can you also talk about the law? Because I definitely know that the 40% part, where if there's no will in place, I think that will come as a shocker for a lot of people to know that, the government can just dip your hands in. And so the question is, what about if one person in the marriage have a child outside?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
there are no illegitimate children. One person, is it the man or the woman now? So if a man has children outside of wedlock, those children are entitled to inherit from whatever he has. They are bona fide beneficiaries of his estate. And that is why we say when you own things jointly and you are the first to go, then these other people are entitled to benefit from it alongside your children, because it now becomes his automatically. I think that's the part, people don't want to hear, but that's the truth. So there is no law that says, because you had the child out of wedlock, the child is not, there's nothing like that. Illegitimacy is not recognized. Whether you had the child out of it, whether you had the child after 20 years after being married to you, the benefits that accrue to his children are the benefits that accrue to his children, irrespective of how they were conceived. Adopted children, the same thing, they would also benefit from it. So that's that's what I can say to that question. So having a child outside does not disinherit anybody, doesn't disinherit that child. The child will inherit from the estate of the father or the mother, depending on. So it's not just children of the marriage that should inherit.
Thank you. So before you go, can you talk about the 40% one, and we can end on that?
Okay, so here in Nigeria, under the administrations of estates laws, when there is no will, the laws of intestacy says that the marriage under the Act, and that's the marriage that you conduct at the registry, is not the one in church, or the registry one. The surviving spouse is entitled to 1/3 of the estate of the deceased. 1/3. If it is not a marriage under the Act, so for example, you did only engagement and a traditional marriage, then there is no statutory stipulation for what you get. You get what comes to you under native law and custom. So I will use Yoruba. Under Yoruba native law and custom, the women don't inherit. Women are considered assets, save with a whole lot of other women, wives, I'm talking now, wives, not children. Wives are considered assets of the man. So the children would inherit either under Ori-Ojori or Idigi. Ori-Ojori is equally, Idigi is per stripe. So if the man had 2 wives or 3 wives, then it will be divided into 3. If he had just 1 wife, then the children will get, and then they can give their mom whatever it is they want to give her. But the truth is, the woman will not, the woman as the wife now, not the woman as a child, will not inherit from her husband. There is no native law that says a wife inherits her husband. But if she was married under the Act, they would not distribute his estate by native law and custom. They would distribute it under the Act. Now, under the laws of England, where a person passes on and does not leave a will, the intestacy law says that the value of the assets up to £270,000 goes to the spouse. Then whatever is left, so if they value the man's assets and he has £300,000 value of assets, 270 will go to his wife first. Then the remaining 30 will be divided into 2 between the wife and the children again. Same vice versa. If the woman dies and her assets are £300,000, her husband will get 270 first. The remaining 30 will still be divided into 2. 15 to the husband again, in addition to his 270, and the remaining 15 to the children, because there is no will. So there's the recognition for marriages under the Act and civil partnerships, but not for cohabitation, which is why I have said, so if you were married under native law and custom in Nigeria, even though native law and custom marriages are recognized as one of the legal marriages in Nigeria. When you transition it to an asset, you have a lot to prove under the laws of England to say, oh, this marriage, or where we are coming from, this marriage is a valid legal marriage. And as a result, I am entitled to inherit on that. So you just have to prove that your traditional marriage to them to be able to inherit, as opposed to if you just brought your marriage certificate out and said, you know what, we're married and, you know, we move on. So that's just the difference. If you're married to a non-Nigerian, then of course you want to make sure that you're not just living with the person, you have actually married under the laws of the state of where you are, and you have proof of that marriage. So you can't just say, oh, we've been living together, because some people think common law wives are entitled to inherit. Common law partnership, there is nothing like that. You can't inherit anything. You've only just spent time with the person. And you know, we have a classic case that happened here as well. A while back, I'm sure a few of us know the story of the Ajayi, Dr. Ajayi, when he passed on, and he had a wife that had lived with him 25 years, and he had a wife that he had separated from, and he only lived with for 10 years. But at the end of time, the wife of 10 years is more entitled to inherit than the wife of 25 years, because he never divorced his wife. He only separated from her and then married Helen and was with her for longer. But at the end of the day, he left no will, he left no trust, and we're back to status quo. Yes, that's what I said. Native law and custom is recognized on that, but you would have to show that you had a native law and custom marriage. So you can't just come and say to them, oh, we were married under native law and custom in Nigeria. You have to prove to them that indeed you conducted native law and custom marriage in Nigeria.
Sorry, Dr. Ajayi, just that name just sounded so familiar. Is it the same Ajayi Memorial?
Yes.
Oh, wow. That was my family hospital. That's where I was born.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah, because the story was everywhere that, you know, when he married Helen, he was with her for almost 25 years of her life. And his first wife, he was with for 10 years. But when he separated from his wife, he never divorced his wife. But they were separated for 25 years.
Wow.
And when he now came down to his assets, Helen couldn't really lay claim to anything.
No wonder, because when I went to Nigeria the last time, I went there, and to be honest, the hospital is in shambles now.
Well, when you fail to have a plan,
yeah,
that's what happened.
Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Any other question at all? I know someone has already messaged me. I will definitely pass on your contacts. Thank you so much for tonight. I mean, it's 9 o'clock dead on. I feel that it's been so packed and full of people already messaging me. So we want to say thank you. Please, can you just give us some hearts, please? There is no excuse. Give us some hearts. You've been fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for passing. Thank you for the stories. You know, thank you for not using slides, because it just made it even more, you know, more connective. Thank you. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much. For the month of June, please, I need your help. If you have a man, if you know a man, it could be your big brother, it could be your younger brother, it could be your husband, it could be that colleague at work. Please invite them for Pass the Baton for the month of June. We're going to be talking about emotional intelligence. Dr. Ajayi, funny enough, it's not the same Dr. Ajayi that she said. Dr. Ajayi will be coming here. Ayodele Ajayi will be coming here to share with our men on emotional intelligence. And like Modupe Peter said, maybe next year, by God's grace, for our men, we're going to be doing estate planning. I feel that, yes, it's a topic that we really need to keep on repeating. And in the month of July, we'll be having HR. I think that will be the last money series to kind of talk to us about CVs, business, and all that tax. And that would end the money series for this year. We've got a lot of other topics. Actually, no, we have 2 more money series coming on, just thinking about it. But before I end, just to give somebody a chance, I'm going to be calling, or let me just, let me take you off spotlight first so you can rest.
Thank you.
Rest. Thank you. Yes, I think you have now. Okay, I'm going to be sharing. Hopefully she's still here. Okay. Sissy, I've asked you to unmute. She's going to share with us a free training. And I know the spaces are very limited now because, you know, it's a good training. Let me put it that way. It's something really good. So she's just going to share, and it'll be first come, first serve. So I've asked you to unmute, sis. I'm not sure which one you want to unmute. I've done for both of your devices. Okay, yeah, you're good to go, sis. Go on.
Okay. Blessed evening, everyone.
Evening.
And thank you to our speakers. God bless you. So yeah, we've got a few places, 3 spaces left actually on a Scrum Master training program that we're looking to put on over the summer period, July and August. So Scrum Master, if you're interested, just look it up. It's part of the Agile methodology. So it's a very profitable career path, I would say. So we're offering free training. It will be over 2 months. So please do. I will put my email address on the chat now for you to contact me by Sunday if you're interested. As I said, there are only 3 spaces left. Okay. So normally, I mean, this training costs a few hundreds of pounds, but it's my profession. I've been in the IT profession for 30 years. So this is part of my ministry to give back. Okay, so that's why I'm offering this. So thanks, sis. I will put the email address for people to contact me for more information. I'll put it on the chat. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
God
And thank
bless
you
you.
for giving to pass the baton. We really appreciate you. So
God
like I
bless you.
always say, we collaborate with other gifts, other ministries, you know, that God has placed within our midst. And also we have Mothers Unite coming up, and we also have Praying Mom with PT coming up. PT and Pastor Maureen, they've been here so many times. So prayers for your children. Both of them are, you know, prayer ministry for you. Can never finish, you know, prayers. And so Praying Mom with PT is coming up on the 1st of June, every 1st of the month. And the Mothers Unite is coming up, I think, on the 16th. I'm not sure. I think the 16th. Let me just be quick to check that up. But if you follow me on my status, you would see me. I always share all of these things. So please do feel free to connect. Okay, on the 18th. Pardon me. So on the 18th, Mothers Unite is coming up. You can like Instagram, it's Olubumi Awe on Instagram, and on Facebook as well is Olubumi Okeowo Awe. I would normally share both, but mostly Instagram is where I really do pass the baton thing. So Olubumi Awe, if you just look for me and just like me, and you can get information regarding future pass the baton events. Also, there is a link, a form that is there. If you want to fill in your details, I would also be sending you every month the future events. On this note, I just want to say thank you so much, everyone, for always coming, you know, for always inviting someone. If it's your first time here today, trust me, people like Modupe Peters, you're not a guest, you are family, you're PTB family. So we gather here every Friday, every last Friday of the month, we gather our topics at the beginning of the year. So we already have topics for this year. But if you feel that you want a topic that maybe you feel that we need to look into this, please do feel free. Send an email, passthebaton@yahoo.com, passthebaton@yahoo.com, and we will try, would endeavor. If you feel that you also know someone that feel that would be a blessing to us, I mean, like Sister Kpeju tonight linked me up with Sister Kemi, and I feel that it's just awesome. It's just an eye opener. If ever someone needs a will to be done or anything, I would just literally send them to her. And that's the whole essence of us all working together. Together, we can do so much. Thank you, Sister Wumi of Colossians family. I appreciate you. Thank you so much again. And on that note, we're going to end. But like I said, before we go, we need to have a word of prayer. I'm just going to ask Sister Bola Oyediro, can you please, sis, pray for us? Thank you. Hopefully you're good to do it. I've asked you to unmute. I think the Scrum Master program, I think I've just seen a post, just put it in the chat. Remember, only 3 places. Hopefully, if it's all gone, maybe in the next slot or something, I'm not sure it works, but you need to send an email. Thank you, Saboladwan.
Amen. 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 In Jesus' name, Father, we just want to thank you. We thank you for this platform. We thank you for the blessings that goes out through this platform. And we thank you especially for this evening. We thank you for the speakers. We thank you because we've been increased in wisdom. Our court has been enlarged this day. So we just appreciate you. So Father, Lord God, we say, even all that the knowledge that we've been increased with, that Father, Lord God, we will go forth and it will cost us to advance in the decisions we make. It will cost us to be wiser in the way we relate, in the way we handle our estate in every way and manner. So that, Father, even in the way we handle our estate, in the way we handle what you've entrusted in our hands, that heaven would be proud of us in Jesus' name. So I just pray for everyone that has been part of this platform, that we will go forth. We will go forth and it would make us to be relevant even now and beyond, so that we would leave legacy for our children, for where we're connected to and the people that are connected to us. So that what you've entrusted, and we've heard about so many stories that, because we are being blessed, we've been blessed to be fruitful, to multiply, to be relevant now and even beyond. So that that which you've equipped us with today will cause us to stand tall, will cause us to stand out in every business that you have entrusted us in, spiritually, physically, emotionally. Father, Lord God, that you would help us and that we would reflect you even as we've been increased this day. So we say thank you as we all go forth. We give you glory, we give you honor, we give you adoration. Father, glory be to you, Lord. In Jesus' name have we prayed. Amen.
Thank you so much.
Amen.
Thank you. Amen.